All right, gang, let's get started. Good morning. Good morning. Let's get this thing started and let's do this right. So let's get focused on, I think, the things that are going to be most important for us this year in terms of our success. And when I say success, it's defined in so many different ways. You can use several definitions to define success. Some people define success as making more money. Some people might say it's having the right relationship and a family and creating a legacy there. And I think it really doesn't matter what the goal is and how you define success. I think that the most broadest definition of success is doing what you want when you want to, as often as you want to, with the people that you want to do it with, and really just creating that life that you envision, that you want, that you maybe in your mind's eye or maybe in your deepest thoughts that you keep to yourself, that you envision, that you may be afraid to share with other people because of lack of belief or clarity on how that might happen. But I think there are three things that if we focus on them, that I believe that our chances of becoming successful, quote unquote successful, of living that life that we want, goes up exponentially. So what are those things? And really consider this. In 2020, guys and gals, there were people who had, despite all the challenges, despite the pandemic, this ongoing pandemic, despite an election cycle, despite all of the protests and the riots and everything that went on, despite the economic impact of the pandemic, there were people who had their best years in terms of an improved relationship. Believe it or not, there were people that during that pandemic improved their relationship with their significant other, that they have a better relationship than they've ever had. There are those who are in better health at the end of 2020 than they were in the beginning, despite the pandemic. And there are those who made more money in 2020 than they ever did in the business of real estate. Now, isn't that interesting? That despite everything that was going on, and I can tell you, I know people personally who improved their relationship. It was better than it had ever been. I know people who are in better condition physically than they have ever been. I know people who earned more money in 2020 than they ever have. So the question is, how is that possible? How is it with all of those challenges going on that people could improve their lives and improve their lot, improve their circumstances? Well, I think it comes down to three things. There are many things we could focus on, but I try to boil this down to a few things that I think are concrete that you could focus on and you could work on in 2021. The three keys are, number one, I believe, to simply have a goal and to focus on it. So if you're taking notes, write that down. And what I'm hoping is this, and I've got to believe that if you're on this Zoomcast this morning, that you do have a goal for 2021. Hopefully you have one for your relationship or relationships. Hopefully you have one for your health, and hopefully you have one for your business, but at least having one, right? So I believe that those who were successful in 2020, despite all of the challenges, were successful because they had a goal. They had something that they were focused on. And here's the truth, we get what we focus on, whether it's good or bad. Many years ago when I got my license to ride a street bike, a motorcycle, I have an Indian motorcycle. When they take you through the training course on how to handle these behemoths, they're huge. My bike's nearly 1,000 pounds, and it's got two wheels, not four, so it's difficult to balance it, especially at lower speeds. But one of the things, those of you who aren't familiar with bikes, those of you who are certainly know this, but one of the things that they will train you on in the rider's course is that whatever you focus on, you will go towards. And their message was in this rider's course that you do not want to focus on the potholes. You do not want to focus on the railing on the side of the road. You don't want to focus on the object in the road that you want to avoid. Let's say, for example, that there is a ladder that has fallen off of a truck and it's now on the freeway. The last thing that I want to do as a rider on the bike is to focus on that ladder, because what we have a tendency to do is to go towards the ladder. And I can tell you from personal experience that that is in fact very true. I have watched myself as I have come across debris in the road or a crack or a pothole, that as I got fixated on that, the bike went towards that. And it gets very scary because despite the fact that you're going towards it, it seems like there's nothing you can do, and you get closer and closer to it. And you have to remind yourself, no, wait a minute, I'm going to get what I focus on, John. So you've got to stop focusing on that and focus on where you want to go. So one of the things that I believe that you're going to have to be very careful about in 2021 in order to achieve something better than what you got in 2020 is to get clear about what it is that you want, not what you don't want. See, most people know what they don't want, right? They don't want to be poor. They don't want to be overweight. They don't want to be in a relationship that's failing. But the question is, are they really clear about what they want their life to look like? That they have this clear vision. There's this absolute clarity of, this is the life that I want. In any of those three categories, whether it's our relationships, our health, or it's in our business or our finances. So my question for you is this: are you really clear about what it is that you want in those three categories, or at least in one of those categories? You see, what I want for you, I want 2021 to be a watershed year for you. I want it to be the breakout year. I want it to be the year, even if you're one of those who had your best year ever in 2020 in one or all of those three categories, I want 2021 to be your best year yet. And I believe that that's possible, but we've got to get really clear about what it is that we want and then focus on that. One of the greatest examples of that in the history of this country was John F. Kennedy, when he made his announcement that the United States was going to put a man on the moon within the decade. The United States did not have that sort of clarity in terms of what their mission was for space exploration. I mean, up to that point, it was really just trying to get satellites into orbit around the Earth's atmosphere. And John F. Kennedy came along and said, no, we're going to focus on putting a man on the moon. And he got really clear about that and said that we're going to do it within the decade. And it was John F. Kennedy kind of crystallizing and getting people excited about that and really creating a vision of what that looked like. They got all of the energies, the emotions, the juices, all the resources of the country together that made that happen. What was at the time seemingly impossible became not only possible, but it came to pass. And to this date, some 50 years later, 51 years, coming on 52 years later, the United States is the only country that's ever put a man on the moon. And it's because John F. Kennedy caused the country to really crystallize its focus on that possibility. So my question for you again is, are you clear about what it is that you're going to achieve in 2021? Because if you're not, 2021 will certainly not be better than 2020, and may simply be just like any ordinary year where you just simply pass time and you get by. I don't want that to be the case for you, because it doesn't have to be. The fact is, you can have your best year in your relationships, in your health, and in your business if you get clear about what it is that you want. So are you clear about what it is that you want? The second thing that I believe is really critical to your success in 2021 is going to be this: your focus on yourself, your ability to focus and improve yourself. See, I believe that no matter how good you are at what it is that you do in this business or in your relationships, how great your relationship is with your significant other, or how good your physical health is, I believe that there's always room for improvement. So my question for you is, how are you going to improve yourself in 2021? Are you focused on specific goals relative to doing that? See, I believe that those who were successful in 2020 of achieving the results that they got, better results than they ever gotten in any of those three categories, is because they focused on that and they actually made it happen. See, they avail themselves of the resources, of the information that's out there. Look, I remember years ago, one of my mentors saying this to me: John, one of the best investments that you can make is in yourself. And one of the most critical investments that you can make in investing in yourself is buying a book. Now, I want you to think about that. You can buy a book for $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 that has another person's story, all of the challenges that they faced, their wishes, their hopes, their dreams, their desires, and their fears, their entire story, their saga, everything that they went through, and how they became successful. And they take all of that information over the course of really a lifetime, in many cases, if you're reading a biography on someone, right? Or at least those critical years of the challenge and the triumph and the success. And they boil it down to a book that you can read within weeks. They give you all the answers to the test. You think about the hard work, the determination, the disappointment, the price that they had to pay to live that. They were living their life. And they take all of that information, that content, and they put it in a book. They boil it down to all the key concepts, the ideas, the stories, and the principles. And they offer it to you for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 bucks. Man, we would have to be crazy to not avail ourselves of that, to go out and buy those books or that book, whatever it is, and read it and learn from their experiences and adopt that. They say that one of the surest ways to succeed in life is to mimic the behavior of those who have gone before us and been successful. How good are you at doing that? Are you consistent at doing that, observing what others have done to become successful, and then just simply mirroring and matching their behavior? See, that's really what the book does. The book is nothing more than a playbook. It's a map that really gives you the answers on the route to take to get to your destination, whatever that destination is. So my question for you is, have you identified the books that you're going to read for 2021 in order to improve yourself to achieve what it is that you want? You know, I think they attribute it to Einstein, who said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. See, if you are hopeful to have a better relationship in 2021 than you had in 2020, or if you are hopeful of having a better body or having better mental health in 2021 than you did in 2020, or you want more income in 2021 than you had in 2020, and yet you aren't identifying the things that you have to change and focusing on improving your approach to any of those three categories, you're insane. You see, that's what Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again in the same way and expecting a different result is absolute insanity. So my question for you is, have you identified the books, the information that you're going to read and really incorporate into who you are and your approach to get different results, to get better results? I'm going to give you, I guess, 11 books that I have read that have been some of the most impactful books in my journey in personal development and achieving whatever level of success that I've achieved. I believe that if you were to read these books and to take these principles, they would give you everything that you need to achieve the success that you want in any of the three categories. These are the 11 books that I would recommend to you. Now, there are going to be many more that you could read. I've read more than these, but I've boiled them down to these. And others, you know, you who are watching, you may have other suggestions. If you do, by all means, put them in the chat box, because this is all about sharing information and helping all of us achieve the goals that we have. So the first book that I recommend that everybody should read is, especially in the business of real estate, is Talk Like TED. I believe that the number one skill that every human being has in life is their ability to present to other human beings, to communicate to other human beings. And this book distills, if you've ever watched a TED Talk on YouTube, what this book does, what Carmine Gallo has done, I believe it's Gallo, yeah, it's Carmine Gallo. He's taken all of the best TED Talks and watched them over and over again, analyzed them and identified the common threads between them, and then written a book that boils it all down so that you don't have to watch every TED Talk, but he just simply identifies the top TED Talks. You can go watch those, but he boils them down and he shares with you why those were the best and why the critics or those who watch YouTube have liked those presentations the most. And it has to do with the common threads that each of them share. Now, I'm not going to get into the common threads that they share, but just to say this, what he said is that you find in the best presentations that those who present are very empathic, they're very passionate, and they help people see things the way that they want them. In other words, they're great at casting a vision. This book, I will tell you, has been one of the most important books that I have read when it comes to me presenting not only to people one-on-one, but also to large groups. And I believe this, gang, that whether you're presenting to a group of 500 people or a couple at their kitchen table, the principles are exactly the same. The ways in which you present to a group of 500 versus to a couple at their kitchen table successfully are exactly the same. So the good news is this: if you want to learn how to be a great public speaker, and you learn how to do that, you'll be great at presenting at the kitchen table. You want to learn how to be a great presenter at the kitchen table, it will prepare you to be a great public speaker, because virtually the skills are one and the same. The book is called Talk Like TED. It's by Carmine Gallo. It is one of the, I'm telling you, in terms of communication, in terms of your ability to present to your buyers and your sellers, one of the best books that you can read. The second book is this, Tell to Win. And again, this book is about the idea of presenting and communicating effectively. The book is written by a gentleman by the name of Peter Guber. Peter Guber is a man who is very successful in the Hollywood industry, has produced many, many movies. I can't remember them all, but I can tell you that they are Academy Award-winning and very successful. Billions of dollars have been earned by the movies that he has produced. He's also the owner of the Golden State Warriors. The man is highly, highly successful, somebody that we should be listening to when it comes to presenting. He talks about his experiences in presenting business deals over the years, and in those presentations, the mistakes that he made, as well as the right things that he did. And he really distills all of this into one single book. If you read this book, really what it comes down to is talking about the power of the narrative and the ability to tell a story. I remember when I read this book several years ago, that it was one of the most impactful books that I read as a leader, as someone who was asking other people to follow him. And I want you to remember this. Each and every one of you is a leader, because you're asking your buyers and your sellers to follow you. You're saying, hey, you, follow me and I will help you get what it is that you want, to sell your home or to buy a home. You're a leader. And as such, you have to be great at communicating. Well, in this book, he talks about the ability to tell stories and to really just share the narrative, and how important that is in building rapport and trust with other people. He talks about this idea that if you will share the story, right? If you, the sound bites, your stories, your experiences, and you give people an opportunity to share theirs by asking questions, that doing that creates a bond. What it does is it brings out the emotions and the passion. And that's really what defines successful people, people of action, is they take the emotions of other people and they harness it and they cause people to take action. Guys and gals, look, one of the most important things that you can do to ensure your success into real estate is to become a better communicator. These two books, Talk Like TED and Tell to Win, are two of the most important books that I believe that any person could read if they want to become a better communicator. The third book is this. It's called The Charisma Myth. And The Charisma Myth is written by Olivia Cabane, C-A-B-A-N-E, I believe. But if you just look up The Charisma Myth, fantastic book. One of the best books that I have read when it comes to, again, to communication. The book talks about three primary principles that are important when it comes to charisma. See, most people believe, at least in my experience in talking with them, that they think that charisma is something that people are born with. It's that natural energy that you have, that you just, somebody who has charisma, they walk in the room and you can just feel their energy. They light up the room. All eyes turn on them. Her point is in this book is that although some people may be born with some of that energy, the fact is that the vast majority of people who are charismatic learned how to be charismatic, because it is nothing more than a pattern of behavior. And she said, if you'll learn those patterns of behavior or those concepts, that you too can become charismatic, because it really is nothing more than learned behavior, patterns of behavior. She said it comes down to three things. Number one, power. Being able to demonstrate to people that you have the power, or in the business of real estate, the ability to help them get what it is that they want. See, if people believe that you have the power or the ability, they will follow you. See, I want you to think about that. You are proposing to your buyers or sellers that they follow you. You're a leader. Follow me. I will help you buy a home or sell a home. If they don't believe you have the ability to do that, they're not going to follow you. So we've got to get better at demonstrating that we have the power or the ability to lead them through the process successfully. The second thing she talks about is having presence. Presence, and what does she mean by presence? Presence is the ability to, when you communicate with people, to focus on them and let them know that they are your number one focus, that they are your number one concern. And in today's world, it is so easy to become distracted and to not have people feel that way, because we have our phones, which are constantly with us, right? There are all sorts of distractions. And simply for a lot of people, their inability to, with their body language, to demonstrate that they are focused on the other human being. Eye contact is one of the most important things. The bottom line is she talks about several behaviors that you can engage in that will allow you to, number one, demonstrate that you have the ability or the power. Number two, that you are focused on them exclusively, that they are the most important thing to you when they are in your presence. And then number three, the third thing that she says is critically important is intention. Now, they say that the fine line between manipulation and leadership is intention. Leadership meaning doing the right thing. Her point is this, that if they know that you have the right intentions, that your intention is their best interest, it is more likely that you'll build rapport with them, that they will let down their guard, and that they will allow you to lead them through the process. So it's a great book, The Charisma Myth. She believes that through demonstrating you have the power with great communication to help people, that you, with your level of communication, that you're focused on them, that your intention is good and that you intend to help them rather than yourself, that through that process, that you're going to lead a greater number of people. And that as you lead them, you will be perceived as having charisma. It's a great book. I would highly recommend that out of the 3 books that I've given to you, that you read all 3 of these. There isn't one of them that I would say, well, read this one first, or read this one second, or read this one third. Read all 3 of them this year. I would highly recommend that you do that. The 4th book is this. It's Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. This book talks about the idea of what is failure. And to boil it down, John C. Maxwell says this, that failure is nothing more than giving up. See, most people think that a loss is failure, that trying something and failing at it, meaning it didn't work out the way they intended, that is failure. And he says, no, that is not the case. The only case in which it becomes true failure is if you give up and you stop trying to move forward. It's a fantastic book. Failure is simply, it's quitting. It's not a setback. It's not a loss. It is just simply deciding to not focus on and continue to pursue that goal that you have. I will tell you, for me, gosh, this was probably 8 or 9 years ago, one of the most critical books that I could have read at that time, because I was at a point, guys and gals, where I was considering giving up my position as an owner and as a leader in this organization. And I came across this book and read it. And for me, John C. Maxwell, in the way in which he really illuminated and defined or redefined what success is and what failure is, it really was a game changer. It changed my entire approach. It really, what it did is it changed my tolerance for quote unquote failing. Realizing that there are going to be setbacks, that it is part of the process, that in failure, I'm actually moving forward. And that was his point. Failing forward. See, those who do not try do not succeed. It is only those who try and try again and try again and try again. You think about it. Thomas Edison, 1,000 iterations or versions of the incandescent light bulb before he found one that actually worked. The Wright brothers, the number of times that they tried and failed at the flying machine, but they didn't give up. Walt Disney talking to over 300 banks and every one of them turning him down until finally one of them said, we'll do it. See, that is success. It's not the roadblock and the failure, right, in the process. It's only when you decide to stop and before you've reached your goal, that's failure. So the book I don't know, it's like 300 pages. It is a great compendium of the principles of what it takes to be successful and really rewiring your brain so that, because that is the key. It is what you believe and how you're going to approach it and whether you're going to stick to the process. And he really talks about how to do that in the process of going towards and achieving your goals. The fifth book is this. I know we've got 6 more to go. We'll get through them very quickly here. One of the most important books that any human being can read if they are interested in achieving their personal goals and achieving a better life. It is The Compound Effect. It is written by Darren Hardy. The Compound Effect basically says this, that the compound effect is the 7th wonder of the world. And most people will fail to take advantage of this concept, that if you will stick with something, that over time, it will give you results that are far better than you could ever possibly imagine. You know, the good book says that you reap more than you sow. You know, you reap what you sow, but you reap more than what you sow. The idea of this book is that if you will stick with something over time, that what you put into it will create momentum and will give you more than you ever put into it. A very good example of the compound effect is this, and then we'll move on to the next book. If I offered to you $1 million today or a penny today, but doubled every day for 30 days, what would you accept? Now, most of you have probably heard this story or this analogy. But at first glance, you might say, well, I'll take the $1 million. $1 million today is certainly better than a penny today and 2 tomorrow and 4 the next. It won't amount to much. Well, the fact is that if you were to take a penny a day for 30 days, by the end of the 30 days, you would have over $5 million. See, that's called the compound effect. Most people who try something don't stick with it long enough to ever take advantage of that compound effect. In other words, reaping more than what they sow. This book is all about that concept and really helping you understand how it can work for you, the ways in which it can work for you, how you can apply it practically on a day-to-day basis, whether you're looking to lose weight, improve your relationships, or to make more money. He'll give you practical ways in which you can actually do that. Fantastic book. One of my top recommendations for success, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. The next book is this. It's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. If you have challenges with focusing and sticking with a schedule on a daily basis, this is your book. This book talks about what it takes to live an effective day, day in and day out. If I were to distill it into a sentence or two, it's this. He basically says that it's not about time management. Success is not about time management because we all have 87,000 seconds every single day. And yet there are people who achieve more in their day than other people do. What is that about? He says that it's simply about this. It is about event management. It's about prioritization. He says most people, he uses this analogy, most people look at their tasks during the course of the day and will take the easy tasks. And he likens the tasks to tadpoles, frogs, and toads. And he says what most people will do is they look at that menu and they say, well, look, I can choose to eat a toad, a frog, or a tadpole. None of them look appealing, but if I have to eat one of them, I'm going to eat a tadpole. Because a tadpole's a lot smaller. I can just simply swallow it, don't even have to chew it, right? And I can eat a few tadpoles, and then at the end of the day, say to myself, well, I'm good, I did my job because I ate some tadpoles. Well, his point is this, know that any of your goals, if you're going to achieve them, if they're worthwhile, actually require that you eat the toad. You got to start with the toad. So his point is this, that you look at the things that are most critical to your success and you do those things first. Well, in real estate, for example, you know what I'm going to say when it comes to your success in real estate, the first thing that you should be doing every day is talking to people, is prospecting. That's the toad. And then you would work from there in terms of your frogs and then your tadpoles. But what most people would do in real estate and in life is they'll start with the tadpoles, they'll fill up on them and never get to the frogs or the toads. He used some great stories and then talks about how you can prioritize and how you determine what your high impact activities are so that you can create a structure and really a schedule that allows you to live the life that you want and to achieve the things that you want in your life. It's a great book, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. The next book, number 7, is Versatile Selling by the Wilson Learning Group. I just recently talked about this book a couple of weeks ago in Morning Ascent, so I'm not going to talk about it in detail other than to say this. It's a book that talks about identifying personality styles. And it's critical to understand personality styles so that you can relate to people on their level. People want to be with people who are like them. So if you can behave like them, you have a greater ability to build rapport with them, and they're more likely to let you lead them. So if you want to get more listings this year, you want to lead more buyers, then learn how to behave in ways that help people feel more comfortable. And this book is a great step in making that happen and learning the skills and the techniques to be more like the people you present to, so that you can actually get their buy-in. They'll feel safe and comfortable, and they'll choose you versus the competition. Number 8, Man's Search for Meaning. This is a phenomenal book when it comes to really what I think is the linchpin of success. Most people will set a goal, guys and gals. In fact, over 50% of people will set a New Year's resolution. And yet what we know is statistically only about 18% of people who set their New Year's resolutions actually achieve them. Why is that? Well, I believe it comes down to one primary thing. They lack the passion or the stick-to-itiveness, the will, whatever you want to call, to actually do what it takes on a daily basis to change their behavior, to change their results. This book talks about man's search for meaning. It's a story told within the era of World War II, and this man, Viktor Frankl's experience in the concentration camps in Germany during the war. And he talks about those people who did not have a clear vision of the future and have something to hold on to versus those who did. And the difference that made, and ultimately the difference was survival. Those who were not clear and did not have meaning or purpose in their life died in the concentration camps if they were not murdered. Whereas those who had a vision and were able to avoid the gas chambers survived, more likely survived, because they had a purpose or a reason to live. It is a fantastic book. It is a very emotional book. It's a book that if you will read it and do it uninterrupted, isolate yourself, it's a book that quite frankly made me cry, because there are some very poignant moments in it. But it is a book that talks about the power of passion. I believe that those who are most successful in life are people of passion. And if you want to be successful in 2021 in achieving your goals, man, you're going to have that rocket fuel of passion. It's going to have to be something that is so important to you, that's greater than the fears that you have about the process and about doing things that you've never done before, and whether you believe you can or can't. It's this idea that you have focused on something that is so important to you, that is deep-seated, that it is in your core, that it is that important, that you'll do whatever it takes to make that happen, to achieve the goal. That's what the book's about. It's a phenomenal read, one of the best reads that you could possibly purchase and read. Book number 9, 12 Pillars. 12 Pillars by Jim Rohn. I won't say anything about this other than to say it was really my first personal development book. I highly recommend it. It's a 2 or 3 day read at most, but it has 12 specific principles in it that are core to success. So if you want to jumpstart this process of reading books about personal development, achieving your goals, start with this. And Jim Rohn, the 12 Pillars. And then number 10, we're going to finish the last 2 books on relationships. The 2 most important books that I've read on relationships are these 2. Number 1, Failing Forward by Chapman. I think it's Gary Chapman, Chapman. Phenomenal book. The 5 love languages. Very important when it comes to relationships, whether it's an intimate relationship or any other important relationship in your life. And it talks about how we communicate with one another and how we need to be communicated with one another in order to feel loved or to express love. Extremely important book. Look, gang, if you're having challenges in any relationship, one of the most critical books that you could read, The 5 Love Languages. And then the last book that I'm going to recommend this morning is called Attached. And it's by 2 authors, Levin and I believe Heller. This book talks about attachment styles. I'm not going to get into the detail, way too lengthy at this point, given the fact that we're out of time. But I would tell you, an extremely critical book to read as it relates to intimate relationships. If you are having any challenges, or if you're not, but you're looking to improve your relationship, your intimate relationship, I highly, 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 highly recommend this book. It's called Attached by Levin and Heller. Gang, the last thing that I want to share with you, remember I talked about 3 keys to your success this year. Number 1 was having a goal and focusing on it. Number 2 is working on yourself. And I've given you 11 books that you could read this year to help you improve your approach to life. And then number 3, the final thing is this: you got to believe, gang. You have to believe. See, it does not matter how much I believe in you or the people around you, you surround yourself with, believe in you. What is critical is your belief in yourself and the conversation that you have with yourself. I'm going to share with you this very quick story here. It'll only take a couple of minutes, but it really demonstrates the importance of belief. This was probably about a decade ago, and I was playing a basketball game one-on-one with a friend of mine, Ben Lemon. And as we finished the game, we saw a couple of young men who were playing basketball just by themselves on a one-on-one game. And we asked them if they'd like to play 2-on-2. They said yes. So I asked I asked them about themselves, and I discovered that they were brothers. And I asked the younger brother who was better, and he said he is, and he pointed to his brother, and I was shocked by this. I said, he's better, and he said, yeah, and the older brother agreed. He said, yeah, I'm better. And just that conversation itself fascinated me, that the younger brother would actually say that, and that he had bought into that. And so at that point, I knew who was going to be my teammate. I was not going to choose the younger brother, despite the fact that the younger brother was taller, looked more athletic, and was definitely stronger. I chose the younger, or the older brother, who was smaller and not as athletic. Why? Because he simply believed in himself. And I have to tell you, that was the right decision, because playing the game of 2s and 3s, the older brother and I beat the younger brother and Ben. So to be fair and to mix things up, we decided to switch. So now the younger brother's on my team. But before we started, I took him aside and I said, look, I play to win. And I know that you said that your brother is better than you. Well, I don't buy that. I said, the fact is you're taller than he is and you're more athletic than he is, and you're way more than he does. The fact is you can beat your brother. You're a better player than your brother. I said, we're winning this game. I'm not playing to lose. And he looked at him like, this guy's lost his mind. But I was serious, because I don't play to lose. And so we're playing the game 2s and 3s, and we find ourselves down. They're 18 and we're 9. We're down by 9 points, and it's our possession. So I call a timeout for a second, and I say, look, we're on the verge of losing this, because they can make a 3-point shot and we're done. I said, we're not doing that. We are winning this game. It means that we've got to make, in the last few possessions, we got to make every shot, whether it's a 2 or a 3. The more 3s we make, the less possessions we have to have, but we got to make every shot. So I said, this is what I want you to do, because I watched him play and he was a good player. I watched him during the course of the game here and there make some great shots, and I observed where he played well. And so I just started calling some plays where he would get the ball in his sweet spots. And the cool thing is this, that possession after possession, I think out of the last 5 possessions, he had 3 of the possessions and 3 of the shots. And the cool thing is this, that we found ourselves down by 9. The other team could have won with a 3-point shot. By the time it was all said and done, that young man had made 3 critical shots, including the game-winning shot. And you might imagine that he celebrated just a bit, beating his brother, whom he thought was better. But I thought it was such a great experience, not only for him, but for all of us, to watch the importance of belief. The fact that I believed in him, but also encouraged him to believe in himself and created an opportunity for him to demonstrate that, was so powerful. Guys and gals, I don't care what your goal is in 2021. What I do know is this, is that you're going to have to believe that you can actually do it. The conversation that you have with yourself is the most critical conversation that you will have this year. It won't be with those countless buyers or sellers. It will be with yourself. So my question is, what conversation are you having with yourself? Is it one of encouragement? Is it one of belief? Is it one of building yourself up? Are you surrounding yourself with people and with messages and with information that cause you to believe in you and who you are and what you're capable of? Remember, having a goal and focusing on it, focusing on your improvement, reading the right information, listening to it, watching it, surrounding yourself with the right people who will encourage you, and believing in who you are. Those are the critical keys to your success this year. It does not matter. We don't have to be seers. We don't have to be wizards. We don't have to be prognosticators. We don't have to know what the future is going to look like technically, right? Nobody could have predicted 2020. All we have to believe in is ourselves and get clear about what it is that we want, and then go to work every single day to make that happen. So guys and gals, let's make 2021, whether it was your best year in 20 or one of your worst, let's make 2021 the best year that you have ever lived to this point. It will be the best year in your life today. It is absolutely possible. I know it is. I believe in you. Let's make it happen.